AC, Aaron Christensen of Horror 101 with Dr. AC. That's my rambling introduction to you, my
Well
friend.
done. Well done.
Thank you.
Now I know. Now I know who I am.
Wow, that makes one of us. And speaking of identity crisis, this is a very different kind of film that we're going to be discussing today on Son of Hammerland. 1 million years BC, literally the brief history of mankind. Not so much picking up from the evolution as we saw in like 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is definitely we've got cavemen and cave women and giant dinosaurs and giant Gila monsters and tarantulas and stuff walking around the landscape. But this is not your traditional Hammer horror film. What is this movie and why are we talking about it?
What is this movie? Well, it's 1 million years BC, which is a remake of the 1940 film 1 million BC, which was directed by Hal Roach and Hal Roach Jr. Some enterprising cinephiles might recognize Hal Roach as the producer of the Our Gang, Spanky and Alfalfa, the Little Rascals. He was the producer of those shorts, as well as a lot of stuff that Harold Lloyd did. So he had quite the industry going, and he and his son decided they were going to do this caveman movie, and it starred Victor Mature and Lon Chaney Jr. And Lon Chaney Jr. plays the father, and Victor Mature plays the dad. Or flip that, sorry. Victor Mature is the son of Lon Chaney Jr. But anyway, so this was an opportunity that Michael Carreras saw because they had just finished shooting a rather expensive film production called She, which is raised on the H.R. Ryder novel, I believe. And that was also a remake, but they had all these expensive sets left over. And they're like, well, how can we put these to use? And Michael Carreras, being the enterprising guy he is, said, hey, what if we did a caveman movie? And what if we could get Ray Harryhausen to do the dinosaur effects? Because the 1940 film, as fun as it is mostly made up of rear projected, real live, like lizards and alligators with fins pasted on them, fighting, and, elephants with big, fur coats on as woolly mammoths. And there's a hilarious scene where the Allosaurus is a literal guy in a suit who's hiding behind a tree, like menacing, but also trying to stay out of frame. It's really cute. But anyway, so I think Michael Carreras thought, hey, I could probably do a little bit better this time around. And I think he does.
Yeah, confession time. This might be my first experience watching a Ray Harryhausen movie. Have we talked about?
Gosh.
Have we talked about his? Maybe we've talked about films that have a Harryhausen-esque quality to some of the effects.
Sure.
I think this might be my first Harryhausen.
Oh my gosh! Well, welcome to the club. Ray Harryhausen was actually one of my introductions to loving horror and monster movies. Watching Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, Jason and the Argonauts, Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. So I'm actually a huge Harryhausen fan. So this is kind of like, Christmas for me, where you get Hammer and Harryhausen at the same time.
Hammerhausen.
Hammerhausen.
Yes.
God bless.
Sorry. But here's the thing. Like, I watched this, I know it's on Blu-ray, but I watched it. There's a copy on Internet Archive. Okay. And it's a pretty good print, if you want to call it that, digital file on the internet.
Sure.
And I kept thinking, I wish I could see this on the big screen on film the way it was originally projected, because the creature effects, whether they are the stop motion, dinosaurs, or they're, as you kind of mentioned, the rear projection, because they have some of the real animals, interacting with the human beings in this, but there's definitely that separation there where I feel like if this is all in an old film print, it would be a little bit less noticeable, because it still looks pretty good today.
Yeah. I actually I hadn't watched this in a while, so I was pleased to have the opportunity to revisit it. And yes, I'd completely forgotten about the giant iguana and the giant tarantula. And there's a fun story about that. Ray Harryhausen, he actually it was his idea, and it wasn't intended as like a callback to the original film, which is what some critics said, that, like he put it in there as a tribute, but actually he put it in there thinking, well, if we show them some real animals, then they'll think that everything is real. And he has since gone on record saying that was a huge miscalculation on our part. We should have never done that. What it did do was afford him, the rear projection process is much cheaper and quicker than the stop motion process. So it bought them some time and some money. And it also makes the stop motion sequences that much more impressive, because you're like, oh, wow, that's actually really cool. Because I love stop motion. I love kind of the otherworldly quality to it. It doesn't feel real, but it feels kind of magical.
Right. And, my experience with stop motion classically is not very deep. I always had this impression of it. I think it's because of the name stop motion. I understand it's the way that they filmed it. That's how the name came out. But I always associate it with, kind of jerky movements, not fluid animation.
Right.
But damn it, there was some, I knew that I wasn't watching real creatures, because as far as we know, those things have never existed, and certainly not in our lifetime. So I can't be seeing what I'm seeing. But when the giant turtle, attacks the cave people, and there's a couple of Tyrannosaurus attacks there, the combination of the editing, the model work, the cinematography just comes together to create this kind of perfect experience where it's believable, even though it's wholly unrealistic, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's actually we don't have any Tyrannosauruses in this film. The one that fights the Triceratops is a Ceratosaurus, and it's a junior Allosaurus that attacks the village, because I had mistakenly referred to them as T-Rexes, and then I went online and I was like, oh, Ray Harryhausen did his research, and he's like, this is what this film is, or this is what this dinosaur is, this is what dinosaur is, because he consulted a sculptor from the British, from the Natural History Museum in London, Arthur Hayward. He consulted him to make sure that all of his dinosaurs were authentic.
I don't doubt that, but I'm still going to think of it as a T-Rex, because I'm simple like that. I can't get, because
if it's on 2 feet, it's a T-Rex. If it's on 4 feet, it's a Brontosaurus.
There you go. Well, now even Brontosaurus is problematic, because I think
it's not a Brontosaurus anymore.
Right. My niece informed me this a couple of years ago. An Apatosaurus. I'm like, why you got to go changing dinosaur names? It was 65 million years ago. But kids. No, so the sort of the junior two-legged dinosaur that we see is not the same species as the other one. No,
it's a different one. The one that attacks the village is an Allosaurus, and that was kind of like a little mini T-Rex. I'm also kind of a dinosaur geek as well. Gotta appreciate this. So anyway, the Allosaurus is kind of like a little mini T-Rex. And then the Ceratosaurus, I don't know what that one is, but in looking it up, I was like, oh, okay, and if you look at it, it doesn't actually look like a T-Rex. The head is more kind of roundish. But, he decided to fight a Triceratops, so that's always fun.
Now I'm gonna have to go back and watch this again and take some serious dinotes. Those are dinosaur notes for those who don't know.
Dinotes, I knew what that was.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, nice job.
Thanks. So basically this isn't just a giant monster movie. There's actually a story involving the human beings here. First of all, take me back. I think this is my first Raquel Welch picture as well. I don't know how many movies she did. I mostly know her from she had a workout line or workout equipment sponsorship back in the day. But she gets she gets some pretty significant billing in this movie, even though she's arguably not a supporting character, but at least a lead, right? And she doesn't even show up for quite a while.
Well, go ahead. No, go. Sorry.
I was going to say that there's, as you kind of alluded to in the original story, it's almost like a Cain and Abel with cavemen thing. Right, yeah. The father of the leader of the rock tribe, and then you've got his two sons who are sort of rivals. one day Tumac, played by John Richardson, he gets shoved over a cliff, right?
Yeah.
By his brother. He's sort of
No,
hanging
by
on,
his dad.
or by his dad did it.
That's right, because his dad decides that he wants Tumac's share of dinner after he's had his share. He wants Tumac's share, and Tumac, understandably, like, no way, Dad, come on. And Dad does not take kindly to that, and basically just beats him up and kicks him off of a cliff.
That's right. I was getting that confused with the other cliff top battle involving the brother.
That's right, Sakana.
Yeah. Yes, with the father. So it's sort of this cosmic justice being played out there on the plains and the mountains. But yeah, I was reminded a lot of 2001: A Space Odyssey while watching this, and this came out a couple of years beforehand, and arguably better costumes on the on the primates and the pre-man. But I was fascinated by there's no real dialogue in this movie except for grunts, and some people have rudimentary names that they're kind of able to express to each other. But it's a very stripped down kind of a film, but I was really engaged in the relationships and the bizarre family and tribal dynamics that were playing out here. Aside from the original, or had you seen the original film that this was based on?
I had seen it. I rewatched it in prep for this one. I watched this one first, and then I watched the 1941. And the story is actually pretty similar in terms of the biggest difference is that for this one, there is opening narration along with that kind of like, descent from the heavens into earth. And that's the only English spoken in the film, as you alluded. The rest of it's kind of just like grunts and indications and the occasional Aikita, whereas in the 1940 version, there is a mountain climbing expedition. They take shelter in a cave, and they come across this, guy hanging out in there who's like a paleontologist. And he tells them, oh, well, these cave drawings were by cavemen and cave women. And let's tell you the story. And, two members of the party play Tumac and Loana in the movie. So it's a little corny. I prefer this one, but everything else, I mean, I don't remember the screenwriters, but there's 3 screenwriters who wrote that original story. And Michael Carreras is billed as the screenwriter based on the original screenplay by those 3. So I think what Carreras was doing specifically was to create opportunities for Harryhausen's moments of spectacle to kind of rise and carry the story along.
And that's the thing is, maybe this is just me. I don't know how you feel about it, but I was so wrapped up in the human kind of drama and wondering where it was going to go that when the monsters came in, it's not that I was disappointed. I was like, because it looked really cool, and they incorporate them, the dynamics with the interactions with the humans, like when that one, I'll just call him baby T-Rex, attacks the kind of watering hole, and there's a little girl up in the tree, and they're trying to figure out how to save her when everyone else is going to the cave. It's wonderful stuff. But I didn't feel like this was like you have nowadays with, let's just say, Jurassic World Dominion, where you've got cardboard, uninteresting characters, and it's just making way for dino spectacle, which doesn't mean anything anymore because we've seen CGI dinosaurs for the last 30 years.
That's right. Well, I agree. I feel like the moments of spectacle support the drama. They actually inform the drama, and stuff comes out of it. Like, Tumac in that Allosaurus attack on the village, he saves the little girl by fighting this Allosaurus with a spear and, eventually killing it. And, that makes him a hero among the Shell tribe. We'll get to a synopsis in a second. I just realized we're talking like the Shell tribe. What's he talking about? But, it makes him a hero among the Shell tribe, but then he doesn't want to give back the spear. And that creates a rift where, Tumac ends up being banished from that tribe. So, again, these moments inform and build. And so that it's not just a timeout so we can have a big dinosaur moment. It's like, okay, this dinosaur moment is actually going to feed the drama, feed the narrative.
Well, it's also, you get differences between these two tribes. The Shell tribe, I imagine they're called that because they live by the ocean. And there's distinct visual differences between these people. Tumac and his folks, they're like, they're the rock tribe. They live in the mountains and the caves. Whereas when he ends up sort of falling down a mountain and waking up just off the ocean, and he sees, it's almost like the opening or the establishing of Wonder Woman, where he wakes up on the beach and he sees all these attractive, like blonde Amazonian goddesses with spears, like going fishing, and they discover him. There's sort of these cultural differences between the tribes, because when Tumac takes that spear after being victorious over the dinosaur, I have a feeling in the rock culture that would have made him leader, or given him some level of esteem that he hadn't had before. Whereas the shell folks are like, no, we appreciate it, but we still have this hierarchy here.
Yeah, you still have to give it back.
Right. But then correct me if I'm wrong, he gives it back reluctantly, but then they say, okay, but you can't stay with us because this is going to be a problem.
because he tries to steal it again in the cave, and there's a whole fight in the cave, while the blonde shell tribe guy is sleeping.
But wasn't that later?
No,
okay.
Loana makes him give it back, makes him give the spear back, and he's grumpy about it. But then later, when everybody's asleep, he goes and tries to steal it, and the guy wakes up and there's a whole fight, and he, nearly kills the shell tribe guy. And that's when they're like, sorry, you have to hit the bricks, mister.
Yeah.
Which is, and like Loana, is like, well, I got to go with him. And I was like, that's, that's sweet.
And there was also, because this is all done without dialogue, this is early man and early woman trying to work out sexual politics, as it were, through grunts and meaningful looks. Yes. Because she's already not betrothed to, but she's kind of got a thing going on, or at least this other guy, I don't remember what his name was, the guy from the shell tribe, and
I don't remember his name either, sorry,
but he thinks that they've got a thing together. So when Tumac shows up and she's making eyes at him and he's making eyes at the other dude, like saying, is she like, what's going on here? Like, I don't know, but I don't like it. And then that ends up being kind of the power struggle. So this whole fight over the spear becomes a fight over someone else. So as this is not exactly slow cinema, but it's not a mile a minute rousing adventure either. But for something that's ostensibly about, early, cave dwellers and giant monsters, there's a lot of subtext going on here. I was very surprised.
It's no Quest for Fire, let's be clear, but
I've not seen Quest for Fire. This is
Quest for Fire is very much a caveman drama, and you're like, where are the dinosaurs? We need some dinosaurs, because it is all about sexual politics, and you're just kind of like, okay, but can we have some dinosaurs or something, because this is killing me here. It's just like, caveman therapy. You were asking about Raquel Welch, and she was, well, first I want to ask, did you watch, and I don't know if you remember, but did you watch the 90-minute version or did you watch the 100-minute version? Do you remember what was online?
It would have been the 100-minute version. Yeah, it was an hour 40.
Because that's the British version, and there are a few extra scenes. The US version is cut to about like 91, 92 minutes. There's several scenes that are trimmed out. And Raquel Welch that's what I was wondering, because Raquel Welch gets top billing in the US version, but according to my sources, John Richardson gets top billing in the international version, the 100-minute version. So I don't remember, but anyway, Raquel Welch was a relative newcomer on the scene. She had just become a contract player over at 20th Century Fox, and she had just done, the same year, she'd done this fantasy film called Fantastic Voyage, where they shrink down a little submarine and they inject it into a human being to go like relieve his heart blockage.
I've not seen Fantastic Voyage in probably 15 years, but I forgot that she was in that.
Yeah,
I gotta go back.
That was like her first kind of like starring role. And then, they cast her as, Hammer had an eye for the ladies. And they said, let's use, since the association was, the co-production was with 20th Century Fox, they're like, great, we'll use, one of the Fox players. And then there was that iconic, publicity shot that they use on the poster, and has since become, just kind of like the pinup for the late 1960s.
It's the thumbnail for this video.
Is that right? As it should
Yes.
be, as it should be. And also, like, it covers Andy Dufresne's escape route in Shawshank Redemption. So anyway, yeah, so that's how Raquel Welch came to star in the film and kind of become the pop icon that she is. I think, I'll be honest, I think she's kind of terrible in this film. I think she's absolutely the weak link in terms of performance. Not
Really?
just her anachronism of her blown dry hair and all of that business. All that aside, I just don't think she does a very good job in terms of communicating verbally and non-verbally. I think she's just kind of outclassed by everyone around her, but she looks nice. And like apparently that's all that was really needed. But I feel like Martine Beswick, who plays Nuponi or something like that, Nupandi, who's the Tumax flame from the Rock Tribe. I think Martine Beswick is just so far superior as an actress, playing a cave woman who has, needs and wants and desires.
I liked Raquel Welch in this movie. I think a lot. Not to try and detract on, from anything that you're saying.
No, it's fine.
But I'm wondering if part of it could come down, possibly a subjectively, not that impressive performance, but also they're playing two different types of cave women here. Yeah. Going back to what we were talking about before, basically the Shell tribe are basically of a surfer tribe. They live on the beach. They all have blonde hair. Yep. They're kind of more chilled out. There's more of an animalistic quality to
the Rock Tribe,
Nupandi and the Rock Tribe, and she gets more, I think, to do and more of a performance.
Sure.
Whereas Raquel Welch's character is more of a reactionary character in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
She does get some, there is some good action moments in there with her, but she basically is kind of following John Richardson around for half the movie, and I think his performance is really terrific.
I think he's great. I think Robert Brown is the Akoba, the dad. I think he's great.
Yeah, we just got a dog the other day, and I haven't lived with dogs in a while, but I'm just struck by how they react to sounds and various stimulus, like the big wide eyes, the jerky kind of motions, the kind of crouching to be ready to either play or fight or whatever. And John Richardson has that in his performance. It was remarkable. Yeah. I thought I was watching my dog.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask, did you recognize John? I mean, John Richardson's under all that hair, but did you recognize him from several of the Italian giallos that we have talked about?
No.
Yeah, he's in Torso, he's in Eyeball, and he's in Black Sunday.
My memory is Swiss cheese, as
sure.
we've established, because I watch these things.
But he doesn't look like himself. I mean, he doesn't look like Tumac in any of those, so you're forgiven.
Well, no, regardless, don't let me off the hook, but I am going to go back and look him up and see what he looked like in all those movies. Because I had that feeling that he had a great presence, and he had a presence that kind of rang like, have I seen this guy before? Nah, but I wouldn't be able to tell under all that hair, as you mentioned. Let's talk about the disparity between the men and the women here visually. I mean, Nupandi has, she's a bit dirtier, a little bit more frazzled, but yeah, did they have like hairspray and makeup back then on the beach?
Well, and white strips. I mean, like, I was just like, wow, everybody's teeth are so white and their hair is so done. And it was, again, I think the Shell tribe is certainly the more, quote, civilized one. I mean, they are into fishing and farming and agriculture. Whereas the Rock Tribe is more, like out there, kill, eat, and sleep. And I think, and having relationships, I think it's said in the opening narration, like the whole, like, ruling of the Rock Tribe, like their credo is the strong take everything. If you are stronger, I'm frozen. Son of a bitch.
You're not frozen to me.
Okay, good. You froze for a second. Okay, good.
Oh. But so yeah, the Rock Tribe is basically, if you have the power, you can take what you want, and everyone else can just kind of deal with it. Whereas the Shell Tribe are more, I guess, chilled,
democratic,
out. Right, and that comes across. They've got an elder, much like there is in the Rock Tribe, but people respect him, I think, more than they fear him, which is kind of interesting. I swear to God, this guy gave speeches at the end of this movie, but he didn't. It was only acting.
Yeah, yeah.
The I guess the visual performance.
Well, and also, at the very beginning, you see, like just kind of demonstrating the brutality of the rock tribe. Like after Akoba, after Akoba traps the giant boar, and then Tumak jumps in and kills it. One of the hunting party, an old guy, falls into the pit and breaks his leg, presumably, and is like, "Help, help!" And everybody just walks away. And it's like, oh man, it's tough being in the rock tribe.
Yeah, well, like we haven't invented splints yet, so good luck. Yeah. Now you've frozen.
Are we back?
You are back.
Okay, good.
Either that or is like that was the world's longest eye roll. As he kind of froze mid blink.
Great.
Yeah, the character dynamics are definitely key in here. But I think even more impressive in a lot of ways is the way that they use the environments to tell the story. You mentioned that they had a lot of leftover sets. I don't know how much of this was on sets versus was it all on sets, and kind of the exteriors were done?
All the exteriors were shot in the Canary Islands in Spain, and any like the cave stuff that was on set, or if they had to do special effects, a lot of those were done set-wise just to control lighting and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like the one cave sequence with the rock tribe when they're cooking all that giant pile of meat, and then it's on fire. I mean, this did not look like special effects, and I don't know how they did this scene, but you've got the members of the rock tribe reaching into the fire, grabbing these hunks of meat to take off and eat. It looked like they were actually reaching into fire to grab this stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think that's you can probably do some stuff with perspective.
And that very may well be, but my point is, watching this as someone who's kind of been weaned on the era of like advanced practical effects and then CGI, if I were to see this in a modern film, like, yes, I could probably spot the After Effects plugin they used to achieve that effect. But here, with the creative camera angles, as you mentioned, and whatever else they did to pull this off, I swear to God, I watched many people piled on top of each other to get this meat, reaching into a fire and ripping out this hunk of food. I'm like, how is this possible? I was taken out of the movie, but in the best way. I was shocked.
You're like, wow, how'd they do that?
Yeah.
And actually, I mean, kind of to your point there, Don Chaffee is the director, and Don had done Jason and the Argonauts with Harryhausen,
right?
Yep, back in 1963, so a few years before. And so I think he was also a natural one that Hammer pulled in, and that Harryhausen probably pulled for. And can you still hear me?
Yeah.
You still with me? There we go. Okay,
yep,
we're gonna make it through this, I promise. But the cinematographer, the DP, is Wilkie Cooper. And Wilkie Cooper is kind of the unsung hero of a lot of Harryhausen movies, because he was the cinematographer and he shot the live action sequences so that Harryhausen's footage would fit in as well. So he did Seven Voyages of Sinbad, Three Worlds of Gulliver, Mysterious Island, First Men in the Moon. So like the fact that Harryhausen had his team, and 20th Century Fox and Hammer had worked out their deal, because Fox was also doing, we talked about The Reptile and Plague of the Zombies. This was all part of that same deal, that bargain between Seven Arts and Hammer. And so, they had a nice thing going at this point.
Now, because this is such a detour from what I've seen as far as Hammer's, just the kinds of stories that they tell.
Right.
Did this movie lead to other kind of prehistoric adventure movies?
It's funny. It's funny you asked that, because this was actually the most successful movie Hammer ever made. This was the most popular movie. This sold the most tickets. And it's because I think the combination of Harryhausen and Raquel Welch but it was a huge success. And yes, in its wake came from Hammer Prehistoric Women, which starred Martine Beswick, who plays Nupandi. Then in 1970, there was When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth. And then there was the dinosaur-free Creatures the World Forgot. There was no dinosaurs. It's just a caveman drama. And it's not nearly as good and was not nearly as successful.
That sounds like a bait and switch.
Yeah,
I
very much
understand you
so.
could say, oh, cavemen are creatures, but if I'm
Right.
going to see that movie, I want to see something with like a long tail and
Well,
big
especially
bones.
since just the year before they did When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth. And that was another stop motion dino epic. Harryhausen was not there, but one of his apprentices, Jim Danforth, did the animation for that one. And that one's actually very enjoyable as well. Prehistoric Women is, Prehistoric Women and Creatures That the World Forgot are, they're the kind of caveman dramas, and you can enjoy them for the virile men and the beautiful women, and but I think for dino kids like me, you were definitely wishing something else would happen.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of fast forward to the end of this movie. You've got essentially a battle of the tribes.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Luana and Tumac were kind of separated. It's almost comical and I guess tragicomic because she's picked up by, now feel free to correct me because I'm sure you're gonna have to, the pterodactyls. Are they still pterodactyls?
There's one pterodactyl and there's a Rhamphorhynchus. So the pterodactyl is the one that picks her up. The pterodactyl picks her up and is going to take her to its nest, and feed its young. And then a Rhamphorhynchus sneaks in and tries to steal Luana. And the pterodactyl ends up dropping Luana in the ocean. And then the Rhamphorhynchus goes and eats the pterodactyl's kids. And Tumac looks up and sees, oh, the Rhamphorhynchus is chowing down. Oh, she's gone.
But she is actually like 20 feet away
from the shell tribe.
Right. She's like laying down behind a bush. Well, not laying down, she's unconscious, but
right.
So they're separated, but they eventually come back together when the tribes begin fighting, and the tribes begin fighting on a volcano that erupts. And this, again, even though it's early days of special effects compared to what we have now, it was convincing and terrifying. Just, I believed that I was there, trying to get to safe ground, but the ground kept crumbling or rising up, or there'd be hot ash. I mean, the sound effects in this movie are insane too. It's a spectacular ending.
I agree. And I mean, it really does kind of like just, again, I love the fact that this spectacle supports the drama, like this is, because what you see is, like, as you point out, like you have these two, like, Tumac returns to the Rock tribe. He takes over as the leader. He beats Sakana in battle, and then Luana beats Nupandi in battle, and everybody is friends. A tenuous truce is drawn, but then Tumac and then Sakana and his crew decide to take over again. And that's when the Shell tribe comes in as allies. So you have this kind of civil war going on between the Rock tribe and the Shell tribe. And then the world blows up and, it's like half of the human population is wiped out. And they learn, hey, we're going to have to create a whole new tribe together. And so there's a morality play going on.
Yeah. And it's just as, I think, impressive as the giant, monster stuff that we saw before, with the kind of the lava, and I've already mentioned what they have to go through, but there's all these different pockets of people that you're sure, like, oh, I'm not going to watch 3 scenes in a row of people we think are going to escape and then they get wiped out. No, I did. There's probably 3, 4, 5 scenes in a row where just all these doomed people scrambling for their lives. I mean, one thing this movie does underscore is, nature does not care.
Nope. Nature's not messing around. Now, I will say the 1940 version is actually quite impressive in this regard as well. There's a lot of earth cracking apart, like giant lizards falling into it. And, people, there's a great scene where there's kind of like a flow of lava, and you see a little kid run across or in the middle of the lava, and the hero, the Loana of that movie, grabs the kid and gets it out of the way. But the mother basically just rolled over by this lava, and you're like, what? How'd they do that? So it's they say that it's spectacular in a really kind of impressive 1940 way. But I think, like this one levels up things considerably.
Yeah, it's an impressive movie all the way around. And when I first started watching, like, I buy a lot of the movies that we watch, but I don't know if I'm going to buy the Raquel Welch cave movie. I'm going to buy the Raquel Welch cave movie.
Yeah.
Sold.
Well, and the Blu-ray that Kino Lorber put out is actually pretty great. You get both the US and the international version. You get commentary, you get some interviews with Raquel Welch and Martine Beswick. So it's a worthwhile investment. And I think you could buy it on Amazon now for like $10. So it's well worth the price.
Cool. And, I appreciate that we talked about this because, the whole point of Son of Hammerland was we're getting away from the Dracula and Frankenstein stuff we covered last year, which is all, great stuff. But we're exploring the other corners of this weird horror landscape. This isn't so much horror, I don't think, although there's some horrifying things in it, but I appreciated that kind of a departure.
Now, I would call this like a monster movie, like the dinosaurs are monsters, that kind of idea.
Yes, but I don't, in my head, I compartmentalize it. I think of monster movies as monsters that are,
fictitious.
I guess, fictitious, not necessarily malevolent, but conceivably. I mean, this is almost like a nature documentary that never was.
Right.
Because when the monsters attack and when they get attacked, they don't have any like magical healing factors or whatever. If they get stabbed, they're going down. They might take a few people with them. And what was impressive to me is that in addition to the stop motion monsters, they had stop motion people that would get caught in monsters' jaws or carried away by a pterodactyl. And even though you're watching this in high definition, however, you can tell, okay, that's a clay person. But the thrashing and the movement in combination with the sound, I believe that is an actual living clay person. It's not Raquel Welch.
Well, and what I mean, that is one of the things I love about, it's not that I think it's real. I don't think stop motion is real, but what I think is I love that somebody did that, that person being Ray Harryhausen. But like, I love the fact that, it's like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to problem solve this? And his solution is to create a little clay figure, and we're going to animate that little clay figure while the dinosaur's flying away with it. So I do hope that you do explore more of the Harryhausen chronicles, such as they are, because I think there's some lovely stuff to find there. For me, I mean, what do you think? I mean, like, does Jurassic Park qualify as a horror film for you? Or is it just kind of an adventure with dinosaurs?
Yeah, it's right on the line. I mean, I don't think I'm going to watch a horror movie. I'll put it in Jurassic Park.
Right.
But every time I go back to it, I'm like, oh, there's a lot more
scarier than
chilling material in here than I remembered.
Because I included it in Horror 101, as a I'm like, I think it's an essential, monster movie. But I know that it's riding the line. I mean, I also included, Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, which is very much a fantasy adventure, but it's got cool monsters in it. So come on.
Well, the last thing I'll say about the clay people is something that I was expecting, because I may have seen this in other movies that I didn't. Sometimes to sell the realism of, a doll or a prop that's supposed to be a real person, they'll have a close-up of the actual actress, like flailing around, like, oh no, they didn't do that here. They completely committed to the bit. They have one
moment where you see Raquel Welch, like, kind of flailing in camera. But it's a rarity. I think you're right that it doesn't happen as often. They commit to, okay, now we're in this clay person version. But there's one shot where she's up against like a blue screen and, kind of thrashing around in the pterodactyl's claws, but then she gets dropped. Anyway, so I'm really glad that this is why I wanted to take this little, off road to visit Hammerland's version of Dino Land. And
Well,
because it was, it was a significant film for the studio.
Well, it's a significant film for me too. I mean, the last several Jurassic World Park movies, they pale in comparison. I think a lot of it comes back to what people always say is, creative vision thrives in adversity and limitation. When you've got when you can literally have a team make anything that you can imagine, and there's no boundaries except maybe a studio budget, and even those are like $250 million to make movies now.
Right.
It's like, well, there's nothing special about it necessarily. I mean, I think there's a lot of I didn't think about the people in the studio making these puppets and these effects and the costume designs and the sets until after the movie was over. I was so thoroughly immersed in what I was seeing that it wasn't until after it was done I was like, holy crap, they made this movie more than 50 years ago.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the thing, like watching, because Harryhausen pretty much did all the animating himself. Like he would move it, he would take the photo, he would move it, he would take the photo, move it, take the photo. So, I mean, like it was a painstaking process, but he gave his characters, and you'll see this as you see more of his stuff, he gave his animated characters so much personality. Like these dinosaurs, they're not just like brutes. They have, that Triceratops, Ceratosaurus fight, like they're like kind of like sussing each other out and like trying to figure out like where the weakness is. And it's like, that's really cool. It's just fun to watch. And that's part of the magic of Harryhausen for me.
Yeah, it's I'm not gonna saddle you with another series covering Harryhausen.
I'd be first in line.
Okay. We'll talk about that for 2025. But Aaron, thank you very much for recommending this, for putting this on the list, and for certainly for talking to me about it. This has been, a great treat. I feel another door has been opened. So what are we talking about next month? Putting you on the spot.
Next month, I did my research this time. We are back to Professor Quatermass. We are revisiting the adventures of Bernard Quatermass in Quatermass and the Pit from 1967. We don't have Brian Donlevy back as the erstwhile scientist, but we do have Andrew Keir, who fans will remember from Dracula, Prince of Darkness, as Father Sandor. So you're in for a good time.
Excellent. All right. Well, until then, whenever that happens to be, and we'll talk about it soon, and I can't wait to watch it. And is this the first like real sequel we've talked about in Son of Hammerland?
Is it? I think it is. I think you're right.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll be back talking about that next month. Everybody check out Horror 101 with Dr. AC to see all of Aaron's stuff. Links down below. If you liked this show, please feel free to like it and subscribe and join us back here next month. If you have any suggestions for future shows, you can put those in the comments as well, because we've got like 8,000 series going here on Kicking the Seat. Why not 8,001?
Why not?
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks a lot and take care.
Take care.